Welcome to the Rational Optimist Podcast. It's a great day. It's a historic day. Bitcoin's over 100K for the first time. But Stephen, you and I usually talk every day. We have not talked in over a week. How do you feel about giving everyone a life update?
Well, what a crazy roller coaster 2 weeks it's been. So my third child, our second boy, George, was born almost 2 weeks ago now. Great. Obviously, anyone who's witnessed the birth of a child or given birth to a child knows how emotional it is and how crazy it is. George was doing great. And about probably a week or so in, we noticed he wasn't basically having trouble breathing. So my wife, to her credit, or motherly instinct kicked in. We instantly went to the children's hospital, which lucky enough is located fairly close to us. Anyway, it turns out he's okay. First of all, nothing happened to him. He's still in hospital 5 or 6 days later, but he had basically a respiratory virus. It was really, really scary at the time. As I said, he couldn't breathe. We went. The healthcare system in Ireland is a nightmare. Sometimes you're left waiting for hours, days without seeing anyone. We went in and the receptionist, to her credit, knew instantly something was wrong. So we were next in line, handing him off to the nurse. Really scary to see him with a tube, having to basically help him breathe or oxygen in his nose, fed through a tube. And he was in a pretty bad way for a day or two, but turns out everything is okay. He's on the mend. He's improving. But yeah, what a roller coaster a couple of days.
Have you been in the hospital the last couple of days?
I've been down every day, but we obviously have 2 more kids, so I've been kind of looking after them when they're not in school. And my wife has been there. She's left for about an hour or two since in 5 days now. A true trooper. It's not like America where she was joking. It's like, wonder what being sick in New York is like, because in Ireland we're lucky. We're one of the lucky ones. We got a small little room that's closed off because George is so young. He's only 11 days old still, 12 days old. But she's basically been like sleeping on a chair for 5 nights or so. So yeah, she's the one doing all the hard work.
You've been home with the 2 other kids mostly?
Yeah. As I said, when they're not in school, trying to sneak a bit of work in. Even on Monday, I was like, right, I'll come back down to you. My wife was like, what about work? Because she knows I don't like taking time off. But honestly, some things just become, when something like that happens, you realize what really matters, and you have to be there in case something bad does happen,
Jeez, it's one of those things where it happens and nothing else matters for a while, right?
100%. And I'm 100% sure none of the nurses from Temple Street Children's Hospital are going to listen to this podcast, or maybe ever listen to it. But I want to be on record to just say thank you. Thank you for everything you did for me and George and my family. And you know what? Like, I'm sure people listening to this podcast have heard about bullshit jobs and stuff. Well, I tell you one thing that's not a bullshit job: nursing or doctors. And I've said it for a long time, but they don't get paid enough. They are the true heroes of society. I always donate to the maternity, our local maternity hospital. I would encourage anyone that's feeling generous or thankful this holiday season to do the same, because they are the people that keep the world running and help save lives.
Every time we joke, it's not a joke. Every time you take a little bit of time off work, whether voluntarily or not voluntarily, something big happens in crypto. Yeah. Bitcoin went over 100K this time. I think the last time it was FTX blew up, right? Shows how little you take off. FTX blew up. This time it was something good. But yeah, it's funny how when you're in the hospital all day, I brought a book down to read, but you're just checking your phone constantly and stuff. But yeah, nice to see Bitcoin over 100K. Obviously, have strong views on crypto. It's the most misunderstood asset class in the world, but maybe a topic for another time. All right, I'm so happy to hear everything's okay. You look all right. Your voice is a little scratchy, but we'll get through it. So topic number 1 today, I want to talk about Mark Andreessen's recent interview on Joe Rogan. It was an eye-opening moment for a lot of people. It was somewhat old hat for us because you've been involved in crypto since, it's not just crypto, but you've been involved in crypto since 2021. You've been talking about the problem of rogue regulators just essentially shutting down all innovation in the industry. And he gave a lot of, so Mark Andreessen is the co-founder of A16Z, the biggest venture capital firm, the biggest crypto investor. And he gave a lot of examples and really went step by step and explained how crypto founders have been harassed and effectively terrorized. And the word he uses is debanked, where the bank that one of them uses or their business uses sends them a letter one day that says, sorry, you don't have a bank account with us anymore. And they essentially get kicked out of the banking system. And that is one of the big reasons why innovation in crypto has been completely frozen for the last couple of years. And listening to this podcast, I just felt hurt because we've been talking about this stuff for years. You told me about Operation Choke Point in 2022. And for years, it was just me and you talking about it. And now it's out there and I'm happy to see it. You?
Yeah, of course. You know what? We actually wrote a full, I think it was multi-thousand word issue on this in April 2023 for an investing research service that we run. But if anyone wants a copy of that, they can absolutely reach out and we'll send it to them. But yeah, it was essentially what was happening is these alphabet soup of regulators, the SEC or the CFPB or the CFTC, they were going after crypto founders and crypto companies. They were suing them. They were subpoenaing them. They even shut down 2 crypto-friendly banks. So they did all these dirty tricks to essentially crush an area of innovation that they didn't like. So this was called Operation Choke Point 2.0. We didn't coin that term. It was it was in a Pirate Wars article, which was excellent. But yeah, this was Choke Point 1.0. So back in 2012, again, these same 3-letter agencies, they said, you know what, we don't like gun dealers or munitions manufacturers or pawn shops or payday lenders. So we are going to use all these dirty tricks to essentially choke these companies off from the banking system, right?
And there's no laws against these things. That's what you say, dirty tricks. It's dirty tricks because there's no laws against these industries. They're legal industries.
And the flip side of that is when there's no law, you have no recourse. So you can't open a bank account. You get your bank account closed. You can't take out a loan. You can't even deposit a check. Tough luck. There's no one to go to. And I guess the pernicious thing of this was that it was driven by the government, but they kind of pressured private firms, banks and financial firms to do this. So that was Choke Point 1.0. Choke Point 2.0, fast forward 11 or 12 years, and they did the exact same thing to crypto. So as I said, shut down crypto-friendly banks. I talked to, I'd go to these crypto conferences and I would talk to founders and they'd say, I have this great idea to do so-and-so. And then they'd just be like, well, but I can't do it right now. Because if I try to launch a legitimate business in crypto, I'm either going to get my bank account closed. My company will never get a bank account, which you think about for a digital business, that's like, it's literally debt. Like you can't take money. So all these things were going on. And I'm glad some light is finally being shone on it.
I remember back in the day, marijuana businesses had to operate in cash, like literal paper cash, which is not an option for crypto firms, right? One of the most eye-opening things I heard, I had not heard it put this way, is that the government took laws that were meant to allow them to sanction like Iran, like foreign rogue regimes, and they essentially turned it inward toward American citizens who were doing things, again, that were not illegal, but that they just didn't like. And it absolutely froze innovation in crypto for the last couple of years.
I agree that was it was just a very strong framing, wasn't it, of about the sanctioning of American citizens in their own country.
Yeah. So first of all, this is why Bitcoin's over 100K now. They finally are not harassing the crypto founders anymore. And by the way, the crypto founders, by and large, there's always some bad actors, but by and large, the legitimate ones, they were begging for regulations. They're like, please just tell us what we can do and how we should do it, so we'll abide by the law and build our businesses. And the government essentially said no, or it essentially said, we'll go ahead and try to do what you want to do, founders, but if you run afoul of the law, we're going to sue you. And there is no law, so they just sue whoever they wanted to.
Yeah, so crypto is full of scams and there's all these meme coins and worthless tokens going up. And that's a direct result of what's been going on. So for years and years and years, the legitimate part of the crypto industry has been asking for regulatory clarity, specifically around, not to get too into the weeds, but to tell them which tokens are securities and which tokens are commodities, so that they know which three-letter agency regulates them. And there's bunch of other issues as well, but those three-letter agencies, mostly the SEC, has not given crypto that clarity because it kind of wants to keep it in this grey zone where it can do whatever it wants to it, right? So that's what's been going on. It's essentially frozen innovation in the industry for at least 4 years. Okay, so if you look at me and say, crypto, I've been hearing about this for 15 years. Where's all the use cases? Where's the utility? This is one of the reasons why there's so little things you can actually do in crypto or use it. So I'm glad we're kind of moving past. We've moved past that, and I'm glad people are so outraged at the debanking that's gone on.
And it's not just a crypto story. That's who've been harassed the most over the last couple of years. But they were starting to do the same thing to AI, and
right.
and to hear Andreessen talk about it, they were doing it to people who didn't have the political opinions that they approved of.
Right. I was actually recently talking to Matt Ridley, and he, of course, the original Rational Optimist, the author of the Rational Optimist book, and he joked that he's probably going to write a book called The Rational Pessimist. And essentially it's that life is going to be a lot better in 2050 because of all these things, but it's not as good as it could be because of bureaucracy like this that we're talking about, because we're turning our back on innovation, because we're treating innovators like criminals. And I think it's really important to call this stuff out. And like this, transparency is an awesome disinfectant, right? And for years, it was only fringe people that were talking about this kind of stuff. Now it's in the mainstream, and I think it's really good. And just your point about AI, yeah, those of us who have been paying attention to what's been going on in crypto, it was like the Sixth Sense. I see dead people. It's like you could see where the AI stuff was going, with government regulation and trying to shut it down and control it. We were kind of shouting from the rooftops about it.
I know the nature of the crackdown is that it was 3-letter agencies. There's no laws. Therefore, there's like not really a person to blame. But if you had to like put the blame on a politician, is it like Elizabeth Warren? Like who's the closest to deserving the blame? Gary Gensler?
So Gary Gensler was the Securities and Exchange Commission chairman. He was like Elizabeth Warren's little attack dog. He was the one doing the implementing of the laws. But this is really all driven by, again, I think it deserves to be called out, Elizabeth Warren. So you might know her as the, fighting. I don't mean to get political. These are all just facts. But you may, first of all, let me quickly give you a brief history. Back in 2020, Elizabeth Warren dropped out of the Democrat primary race, and behind the scene, she made a deal with Joe Biden. She would drop out and endorse him if she got control of basically the financial wing of the White House and all these financial regulatory agencies. And Elizabeth Warren loves to, dunk on big banks and talk bad about them. But why she likes them is she has them exactly where she wants them, and she can see everything they do and control them with laws and regulations. And crypto is a little bit outside that. It's like a new financial system, and it can't be so easily controlled. So, and crypto could essentially be a competitor to the banking system. So yes, it's all being driven from that wing of the of politics. But good news, the worst is over.
She's like a real life Atlas Shrugged villain. Like almost too on the nose. Remember her ad from a couple years ago? Elizabeth Warren is building an anti-crypto army. It's like, why?
Yeah, it was a really bad. So what ended up happening is, I believe, basically the crypto industry came together, companies like Coinbase and the stablecoin issuer Circle, and plenty of entrepreneurs who've made a lot of money in crypto. They came together, and I believe they raised the second or third largest super PAC this election season. So they all raised over $100 million to back pro-crypto candidates against anti-crypto candidates. So that ad really annoyed a lot of people, and I don't believe how many people. There's 360 people, 360 million people in America right now. How many of those is like, yeah, crypto's my number one voting issue? So she annoyed a lot of people, and she won over absolutely nobody by doing that. It was the worst campaign poster ever.
Maybe a couple hundred people who had accounts at FTX.
Maybe, but just thinking about it's kind of like you might not care about. You might think crypto's a total scam, and you might not really care about it. You should care about it because it's kind of like crossing the Rubicon. Once you start weaponizing the financial system, let's say, you never know when it's going to turn on you, right? So I think another example of this was, I don't know if you remember the Canadian trucker protesters a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Right. So it was basically anyone that was involved in the protests in any way, anyone that donated to the protests, ordered every bank, credit card provider, investment firm, insurance company to freeze the accounts, right? No arrests, no day in court. They just ejected thousands of Canadians from the financial system at the touch of a button. That's really, really bad. So
and that's why they hate crypto, because you can't do that with Bitcoin. You can't do that with money on the blockchain.
Right. And yeah, I agree with all that. At the same time, if you're some criminal mastermind and you're thinking the best way to hide what you do is to do it on an open public ledger that anyone can see, and that is recorded forever in history, which is the blockchain, don't do it.
No, there's all these stories of people stealing Bitcoin and then they can't get it out because everyone can see their wallet, and as soon as they withdraw it, they're going to get arrested.
Yeah.
Last thing on this, it was not the government that was doing the debanking. It was their lapdog financial institutions, who the government would maybe make a suggestion that, hey, maybe these politically unlike people should be debanked. And then the companies like JP Morgan were the ones to actually do the debanking, which makes it's still unconstitutional, at least in my opinion, but there's not as direct a line. And that's the definition of the marriage of state and corporate power. And right. Everybody's calling everybody a fascist these days. That is the definition of fascism.
Right. So yeah, again, you might be wondering why two rational optimists are talking about this. It's because, hey, we know there's a lot of problems in the world, and you kind of have to shine a light on them. And I'm glad people like Mark Andreessen are stepping up and you're letting the world know about these things.
Did you hear what he had to say about drones?
Yes. So again, back to silly rules and regulations. So the Federal Aviation Authority, the FAA, it's essentially made it really, really hard to build drones and innovate in drones because they have these crazy rules, which are now being scaled back, that you cannot operate a drone unless a person can see it at all times. So just some crazy stuff, right?
Unless the pilot can see it at all times.
And the only way around it is if the person who's operating the drone is a licensed pilot, right? Like by the FAA. Right.
Which essentially makes them useless.
Right.
So you're writing about this in the Rational Optimist Diary this coming Saturday, or this coming Sunday, and these laws, your argument is, and I don't see how you could argue against it, is that this has just allowed China to completely dominate in drones. Yeah,
so I mean, there's two sides of drones, right? There's the Amazon delivery drones that could deliver your morning coffee. That's cool. There's the drones that are going around IKEA warehouses checking stock. Again, cool. But then there's the other side of it, the military side of it. And for anyone that knows what's happening right now in Ukraine, basically soldiers are turning these toy drones that you can pick off the shelf at Walmart for $100 or $200 into killing machines, right, by duct taping grenades to them. So Bloomberg did a great recent documentary on this. I'll share a screenshot with you right now. Drones, and again, not $10,000 military drones, they are completely reshaping warfare by passing these crazy laws. America is kind of hampering itself, and it's handed the market to China, right?
So Chinese company DJI makes 70% of the world's drones, and the American military and American law enforcement use these drones by the thousands. They use thousands of Chinese drones for military applications. If that's not a security risk, I don't know what is.
Yeah, you could basically turn them into a spy device, or you could have some backdoor that, like a flash, like click of a button, they all just turn on you. Seems not great.
Yeah. So there's two sides to the drones in the military story. One is how they can be mass produced for so cheap that you can make 10,000 drones for like one millionth the price of an aircraft carrier, for example. And then 10,000 drones versus one aircraft carrier, the drones are going to win. It's like a swarm of bees fighting, a swarm of killer bees like fighting a grizzly bear or something. Doesn't matter how strong the one animal is. And so because the costs have declined so quickly and the pieces that need to go into a drone, like the antenna and the control systems and the communication systems, have gotten so small and so cheap, China can just mass produce them. And so that's really, it's already changing the nature of warfare, and that's only going to get more so as, I think the main limiting factor right now is the range of drones. Like, batteries have come a long way and they've shrunk a lot, but they can still only fly. I don't know exactly what it is, but they can still only fly so far over enemy lines until they run out of power. But that, as we know from learning curves, that's only going to get better and better. But the other side of drones that I want to talk about a little bit more is AI controlled drones and how they change even more about warfare.
Yeah. So just on your point about the uniqueness of drones, you think about an F-35 jet, right? Costs whatever, a couple of $1 billion to make. I believe Lockheed Martin signed the deal for the F-35 in 2001, and they gave the specific design, and it's like, hey, here's how we're going to make this, and all the technology from that jet fighter is frozen in 2001. So your iPhone gets better and better and better every year. The F-35's frozen from 23 years ago. It's crazy. Whereas the drones, you can iterate on these things so fast. So you send a couple of drones out and you realize problems, or you realize what it does really well. You can build a new fleet of drones in a month or two. Okay, so
China can.
China can. That's why they're getting that's why they're getting so much better. You know what? I'm after forgetting your question. What's your question?
Did I ask you a question?
You did ask me a question. I went off on a tangent then.
The rationally optimistic take on this is that we have patriotic entrepreneurs stepping up to the plate in America, right? Like Palmer Luckey of Anduril. And we're finally, a lot of the defense contractors, all of the major defense contractors in the U.S. they're stuck in their ways, to say the least, and they milk the system, and they are more concerned with maintaining their profit streams than innovating and actually helping America win, in our opinion. And we've got startups that are fighting to change that.
Yes, like Anduril. I remember what you asked me now about AI. So I'll give you a great story. So, as I said, right now, just pay attention to what's happening in Ukraine. Drones are completely dominating the battlefield. So America gave Ukraine a couple of Abrams tanks. They were basically all got blown up by drones. Same with Russian tanks. Okay. Obviously both sides realized the drones have become, again, they're completely changing the nature of war. So they started jamming the communication lines. So you're a pilot that used to control a drone. Well, you fly into this, call it, electronic force field, and the drone just drops because the signal goes out. With these AI drones, they fly themselves. Okay. They're basically like, it's like they have ChatGPT for our brain. They can see exactly where they're going. They identify targets. You can pre-program them to go out and then come back for reconnaissance missions, or go and kill someone, or go and you see a tank, destroy it. So you can do all these things. And the advantage of that is that when it's just the AI system, it doesn't need to communicate with anyone. So it can fly right through these force fields. There's nothing to jam. So this is just a great example of how AI is complete. They're basically robot killing machines. Okay, and as bad as that sounds, it's like companies like Anduril are saying, "Hey, this technology is out there. It's either the bad guys are going to get it or we're going to get it." And Anduril's doing some pretty cool things, right?
Yeah. And the AI drones can also communicate very effectively with each other.
Yes.
I'm sure you've seen the light shows in China where it's like hundreds of drones all in unison moving around, and it looks like a dragon. And it's similar to their 2008 Olympics opening ceremony. You remember where everybody's drumming together? It's like that. It's awe-inspiring, but it's also a little scary.
Now imagine, so I believe the one I saw was 8,000 drones. So now imagine, instead of showing you a cool dragon in the sky, they have grenades attached to them, or little mini machine guns. Like, the technology is there today. So you better believe that, or you better hope that an American company is gonna harness this.
Why can't an EMP just stop all that?
You know what? I'm not going to talk about something that I don't know. I think when you ask people, like, you know, people say, oh, you're optimistic and all these things, but what about an EMP? It's something I've heard for 20 years. And you know what? I'm going to make a bold statement. EMPs don't exist. It's never going to happen.
Well, you've clearly never seen The Matrix, where they're under attack by all the flying robots and they just press the button and they all just die out of the sky.
Can someone tell Dan that The Matrix is made up?
So the rationally optimistic take on all this over-regulation stuff that we've been ranting about is that even with that blight of regulation that's been tamping down innovation in America, we're still the fastest growing big economy in the world. So round of applause to all the American entrepreneurs, all the innovators who press on despite all of these obstacles and are still making life better for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we should just show. So Anduril, Palmer Luckey's company, Palmer Luckey started Oculus, the VR headset company, sold it to Facebook, then realized, hey, you know what? There's basically the American military is really far behind. I need to go start a defense company. So started a company called Anduril. I'm going to show you one of its newest weapons. It's called Roadrunner. Basically a sleek missile bursts out that what looks like a giant beer cooler, and it can go through the sky at hundreds of miles an hour and intercept enemy drones. So we've kind of been talking about the offense side of the drones, but there's also a defense side, right? And again, Anduril is designing product in 12 months, what usually takes Lockheed Martin and Boeing and Raytheon 15 years. So these guys are doing military defense better, faster, cheaper. I remember a couple of years ago, we predicted Palantir, when it was a tiny company, would be the largest defense contractor. I can confirm it now is the largest defense contractor by market cap. And you know what? I think Anduril is going to be number 2 relatively soon, within the next 5 years.
Palantir is pretty much software and Anduril's hardware. Is that like the really simplistic way of putting it?
Yes. I mean, Palantir does not make any hardware products, but the amazing thing about Anduril it makes all these drones and you know, all these different things, loitering munitions, autonomous submarines. It's working on all these things, but the foundation layer of Anduril is a software program called Lattice. So you can imagine a soldier and he has access to this software program, and at the same time he could launch a Roadrunner drone, and then he could launch all these other things. So it's really built into the one intelligence system, I guess. And AI is a core part of what they're doing.
All right, go Anduril. You want to talk about airships?
Airships. So Dan, let me tell you, shipping sucks. So, you know, my wife and I were moving to Abu Dhabi in the new year. My wife called up a shipping company and said, hey, you know what? How much would it be to ship like 2 boxes of toys and like a bedside cot from Dublin to the Middle East? That's going to be $2,500 and it's going to take 21 weeks, please. Luckily, a couple of ex-SpaceX engineers, they founded a company called Airship Industries. It's going to basically bring blimps back to life, but do it better than ever. They're going to be cargo blimps that are going to be 10 times the size of the biggest planes in the world today. This is what it's going to look like. This is a mock-up what it's going to look like. This is some pretty cool technology, right?
Yeah. I was like, why didn't I think of that? You fill it up. The cost of operating it, I believe, are 75% lower than operating planes because you fill it with what? Do you know what they're filled with?
Do you know what? That's a good question. I believe it's a lighter than air gas, helium or hydrogen or something. Yeah,
of course. Yeah. So of course you think of the Hindenburg when you think of this stuff that ended in flames, but that was almost 100 years ago. How far has technology come since then? We can do this safely now, and the costs are lower because you can fill it with a lighter than air gas. It rises up. It doesn't constantly need thrust like an airplane does, and it can. It's more maneuverable, so it could like float over a warehouse, let an arm come down, pick up goods, float to wherever else it needs to go. It's not restricted to just going in and out of airports. Just thinking through it, it seems like a real game changer.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's basically building self-flying. So we talk about self-driving robo-taxis being the cutting edge. These guys are working on self-flying airships that are going to fit in perfectly and kind of revolutionize global trade. So again, like you want to ship something by a ship, a boat, you're going to take weeks, right? And it's going to burn loads of dirty fuel. Planes, they go really fast, but as my Abu Dhabi story told you, it's going to cost you a fortune. And then trucks, well, they can't go across water. And then each option you just think about, you're not just, the plane doesn't fly to your house and collect the cargo. Same with the boat. It's like you have to put it on a truck and then it has to go to the boat or the ship and all these things. Airships, they're like direct. They promise direct door-to-door delivery. So as you said, it can hover over a factory, it can deliver it to anywhere, it can pick it up anywhere. So I think just really awesome. And, I was talking to one of the backers of this project, Eli Dorado, who's the chief economist at Abundance Institute a couple of weeks ago. And he said, within 4 years, they're going to have a prototype, a test ship up and running. So very exciting.
The Longshoremen Union is not going to like this.
This is what it's going to take to disrupt them, right?
Yeah. You got a dose of optimism for us?
I have a dose of optimism. So, you know what? I showed this chart on the podcast last week. I should have saved it for this week because I came very close with my son George being sick in hospital to kind of making this, this being concrete, but not in a good way. So I'm going to show you the long run history of child mortality. So it used to, we talk about losing kids these days like it's a tragedy. And it's something that I hope never happens to any of us, anyone listening to this podcast. That just used to be real life and everyone lived it. So you can see on this chart, it used to be that 1 in 2 kids, 50% of kids died before their 15th birthday. And even, 70 years ago or so, it was still at 27%. Call it 1 in 4 kids, right? That's crazy. Today, in developed countries, it's less than 0.3%. Which is amazing. So long may this trend continue. Just again, grateful for, maybe helpful to provide some clarity. It's because we have vaccinations. It's because we have midwives and nurses that you can go and see and like monitor the births. That's why these trends have dropped. So there you go.
All right, viewers, you can boost our rational optimism by hitting the like and subscribe button for more conversations like this. See you next week.
Talk next week.